It's been a long campaign season, and we're appreciative of Congresswoman Mikie Sherrill spending some time with us in these final days. I know you're up and down the state and one event after the other. And I did want to mention I was at Newark Airport this morning right away with this air traffic controller issue again, calling out sick. And that was one issue. But people in the airport from the area that were traveling came back to your, I believe, is your still your number one issue in affordability. They have this kind of pained look on their face about, where do we go from here? And can either one of the candidates help us? And is that still top priority? I know utility bills too, but the affordability issue itself.
Yeah, it's really the critical issue right now here in New Jersey. And I've always heard about it. New Jersey's a high cost of living place, but it's really become dire in many communities. People saying stuff like, I can't breathe, I can't get my head above water. I keep working and working and I can't get ahead. So that's why I've said on day one, I'm declaring a state of emergency and freezing utility costs, rate hikes, just because to show people, this isn't something I intend to sort of do a study for 10 years and get back to. I am immediately going to work in every way I can to drive down costs. Improving that first-time homebuyers program, taking on landlords who are colluding to drive up rent, working to drive down your pharmaceutical costs and your prescription drugs, which are going up, largely because of PBMs, those middlemen driving costs up. But it is going to be really different or difficult because we see a president right now who seems hell-bent on destroying the economy of the United States of America. So these tariffs are raising everyone's cost as he's pocketing billions of dollars. He added $1 trillion to the deficit in only 2 months, and yet seems to be cutting every single program that creates opportunity and lowers costs in our state. He has said now he's going to terminate the Gateway Tunnel project. I mean, this is a project that could be responsible for almost 100,000 jobs, 200,000 commuters take it. It'll put more cars on the road if we don't do this. And the Northeast is responsible for 20% of the nation's GDP, but that doesn't seem to matter to a president who is just carrying out this punitive program that seems really beyond comprehension.
Now, property taxes, I have spoken to you about that. You get asked about that all the time. Somebody said to me, listen, I pay $20,000 in Ridgewood, New Jersey, say, just per se, and they want it to get to 15. How does that, I mean, talk about emergency action. That's obviously something that can't happen overnight, but a lot of the governors in the last 30, 40 years have been trying to do something about it. What really can be done? When people hear about what we pay in property taxes around the country, I think they're pretty flabbergasted. So
yeah, and it just keeps going up every year, which is why, again, it's something people have long complained about. But given that property prices, housing prices have gone up by 50% in the last 5 years, and so many of these property taxes, even for people who have been in their home a very long time, just because other properties have gone up so much, their property taxes have gone up astronomically. So there are two major costs here that lead to increased property taxes. We have our schools and we have our state health benefits plan. And with the school system, we really need to share services better, especially in the administrative cost. We have more municipalities than California, and we have more school districts than municipalities somehow. So what that does is that creates such a layer of cost there, and it's not going to our students, it's not going to our educators, it's not going to our school buildings, it's going to this bloated administrative system. So we need to, as governor, I'm going to take that on so that we can drive down costs there, because it's not just the administrators, it's these buildings that are very old buildings that are very costly to maintain. We also have the state health benefits plan, which is in a death spiral. And because of some of the regulations around our state health insurance program, they aren't as competitive as they should be in driving down costs. And then we also need to add competition into the market. I'll get an auditor in there right away to claw back some of the money being paid in claims that doesn't seem to come back into the state coffers. That could be quite a bit of money. So we can drive down the costs there, because that's adding for municipal workers 20, 30%, a year that goes up, and that's an added cost to property taxes as well.
now, if you wanted to do school consolidation, for example, you would get pushback from the NJEA, I would assume, right? That would be a tough road to go down as well, you think, or no?
Well, I'll tell you right now, we're not seeing very good outcomes in third grade reading. We haven't caught up on learning loss. We're paying an incredible amount of property taxes. Many of our schools aren't very competitive. So we like to say we have the best public school system in the nation, but it's still by zip code. And so I think something's got to give here. And the number one thing as a state, as governor, that I'm focused on is our children and creating great educational opportunities for our kids. So I'm going to focus on third grade reading, making sure our teachers get phonics education so they can train kids in that. That'll help us with some of those third grade reading outcomes. Getting high intensity tutors in place to combat some of the learning loss we've seen, and getting more mental health resources into schools as I pass the kids' online safety agenda, because we know so much of what's going online is having a huge negative impact on our kids' mental health.
Let me focus, if I can switch gears to immigration, if I might, please. It's an
Mhm.
issue that's on a lot of people's minds. We've been seeing ICE agents on the streets in New York and New Jersey, recently in New York City. We have some governors calling for actually for ICE agents to be arrested. Would you want to go that far? What's your level of concern in terms of ICE's role and what they're doing right now? And would you go as far to say that ICE agents should be detained? I mean,
Well, my number one priority as governor, and I'm a former federal prosecutor, and I worked hard at this, is to keep our streets safe and to keep people in all of our communities safe. And right now, I've heard reports from police officers saying, there was a person on the neighborhood streets looking like he was going to Afghanistan. So imagine you're walking down your street in your town and you have your kids with you, and there's somebody that has a mask on that is unidentifiable, that is looking like they're going to Afghanistan with all of the automatic weapons on them, and you have no idea who this person is. So the police officer said, show some identification, and the person said, no, I don't have to show you that. And so the officer said, well, look, I'm going to arrest you. And the agent said, I'll arrest you. And so finally they get into it. Finally shows identification. It's an ICE agent. That does not create a sense of safety in our communities. We need to make sure that we're following the law and the Constitution here in New Jersey, that people in New Jersey feel safe going to schools, going to their doctor's appointments, reporting crimes. And that is what our police officers will be working to do in my administration. I will be ensuring all of our communities feel safe.
or with Congresswoman Mikie Sherrill. We appreciate. We're going to continue some other discussions on. Again, I'm a street reporter, so I hear kind of like you do. You hear a lot more than I do, but the pulse of the people, and in terms of the temperature, I guess, lack of a better phrase, of the world right now, and the United States and our state, in terms of the political division, the anger. I go to rallies, and I've covered these for many years. A lot of them are not even necessarily, some of the rallies that I go to are not necessarily for the candidate. They're against the opposition, if that makes any sense. I mean, there's just a lot of anger and yelling and strong language. And have you experienced that? And does that disappoint you? That are you able to get to the issues without, you see all this back and forth? It must be frustrating to some degree. I mean,
It's interesting because certainly this has been, a really hard-fought campaign, and my opponent has taken some of what I've said completely out of context when I was saying the opposite, and he suggested that I wasn't. He's put out misinformation in various areas, so it's been frustrating. But when I'm on the ground with people, what I hear is not so much that anger, but more a resolute, intense desire to fight for the things that they believe this country values and that they value. So things like opportunity, a great education, um, expanding who has a seat at the table, not co-opting all the power of the nation, ensuring people can get good jobs, can get a good education. I talk a lot about opportunity to the rallies and the groups I speak to, as do many of the other people that I'm often with. I think that, when I am out, it feels like, I wouldn't say anger, but determination to ensure that our kids have the same access to freedoms and rights and opportunities that we had.
if I can ask you though too, if I could follow just about the state of your party. Um, in terms of, I've noticed too, there seems to be a lot of certainly young people involved. I know you, I don't know if you've weighed in yet about Mr. Mamdani and his chances of winning the race there. And his platform is certainly, what he's being called a socialist, even a communist by Donald Trump. Any thoughts about where the future of the party goes, though, if he is elected versus, not far away in New Jersey, kind of what your platform is? It seems that it's quite different. So.
Yeah, I've just, as you can imagine, with a race like this, I've just been really focused on New Jersey. And I'm going to let New Yorkers kind of take care of that. But I'll tell you, in New Jersey, what I am hearing is a desire that government works better for people, that people want to feel heard and want to engage on how to drive costs down, but also want to fight back against what they see coming from Washington. I think people in the United States and people in New Jersey are used to a fair government, and this constant attempt to rig the system or cheat the system, to redistrict so he can cheat the election system next year, to enrich himself at the expense of everyone else. It's just not working for people, and it's at the word, and it's really driving up everyone's costs. So that's really the fight here in this election.
No concern though with Mr. Mamdani though being what he's calling himself a socialist. Just does that register with you? And there's really you don't want to say a lot about that, or
No, I mean, I'm not a socialist, so I haven't really followed that platform. That's not how I run. And that's why I've just been really focused on New Jersey and making my case to the people of New Jersey. I'm willing to both work with anybody who's going to help me fight for New Jersey, and I'm willing to take on anybody, and that includes members of my own party, when it comes to fighting for the people of New Jersey. And that's really different from my opponent. He refuses to call Trump out on anything. So whether it is the tariff program, he says people in New Jersey should take some pain for Trump, or the one big beautiful bill, which is raising costs on healthcare, electricity costs, cutting money from education and opportunity, and he's full on supporting it. Or even the Gateway Tunnel attempt to freeze the Gateway Tunnel money, the biggest program of national significance, responsible for almost 100,000 jobs here. And he has said that it's not a New Jersey problem. So at every turn, my opponent just keeps doubling down on doing whatever Trump wants and refuses to stand up for the people of New Jersey.
well, hopefully New York and New Jersey continue to get along. I think that's a good thing, right? That's important for both sides. So, a couple
Yeah,
of other
maybe if
quick
New York
questions.
gets rid of that congestion fee or gives some money to New Jersey Transit, we could get along better.
That was actually, if I have maybe 30 seconds on a couple of questions. What about Jersey Transit? I mean, Governor Murphy has spent a lot of times, almost apologizing for it, in kinds of, in terms of service. It seems, I don't want to say anything, that it seems a little quieter in recent weeks, but, long term, there seems to be a lot of concern there. So.
Well, there is a lot of concern. So we saw Summers of Hell. We saw Amtrak not keeping up their railway very well. It's why I fought so hard to get the $300 million to fix the catenary wires in the Northeast Rail, because those were sagging in the heat and causing all kinds of delays. And really pushing Amtrak to keep up their rail. As you know, New Jersey Transit rents their rail from Amtrak, and they haven't been keeping it up or maintaining it as well as they should. The Gateway Tunnel is a huge issue because that is the 100-year-old Hudson rail tunnels that were severely damaged in Sandy. And so the Gateway Tunnel is a critically important program. This area of the country is responsible for about 20% of the nation's GDP, and that's a real choke point, the most heavily trafficked rail. The Port Authority has not been putting enough money into the PATH system, so we've seen problems there. So really everywhere you turn, there have been problems, and it's a shame because New Jersey Transit, of the NJ Transit and the MTA and the LIRR, used to be the best, and now I think it's by far the worst. So we're fighting hard to get the Gateway funding in, but we also have to have a dedicated source of funding. So that's why I'll work hard on transit-oriented development, advertising on trains and buses, and using some of the properties of New Jersey Transit to get money into the system by doing things like building parking lots on there, et cetera. So we can continue to have more dedicated source of funding to keep up our rail system better.
Couple of quick questions. We'll finish up. Turnout. It seems initially pretty heavy. A lot of interest in the race, a lot of passion in the race. I don't know what in terms of what you may be hearing or seeing, but who do you think somebody asked me that today. Again, I always compare the street person, what are they asking me? They say, who do you think it helps more if there's a big turnout? Does it help the Democratic side where there are more
Yes.
registered voters, or does it
Yeah.
help Jack Ciattarelli? I
No.
mean, no. So I mean, it's basically it is that, right? There's more
Yeah.
Democrats, right? So
Yeah, there's more Democrats. This is a blue state. The only way, this state kind of has a Republican or swings to the right is when Democrats don't vote. And we're seeing no signs of that in this election cycle. So the vote by mails are looking great. We just won the first day of early in-person voting, which Republicans had said they were going to see a huge surge of votes, but there were no signs of that. So I think we're seeing a really great turnout. And I can't say I'm surprised, just given we have been seeing a huge amount of volunteers. We have the largest field program that's been run in the state of New Jersey, and a lot of that is volunteer based, which, that kind of surge shows great enthusiasm. We've seen at a bunch of the rallies and events, we've seen a huge turnout and excitement. And then certainly, like I said, the votes coming in have looked very, very good and continue to look that way. So I'm going to continue to be up and down the state for the next, 8 days now, a week tomorrow, to get every single vote out.
last one, Barack Obama, the former president, will be here. Talk about that, and overall the importance. I know Governor Shapiro was with you. You've had Gretchen Whitmer. What really the importance of someone like Barack Obama standing with you in Newark this weekend? What does that mean?
Well, it's pretty striking. It's interesting. Josh Shapiro was here, and my opponent Jack Ciattarelli keeps admiring Josh Shapiro, and and so I thought it was, which I found interesting because, of course, many of the programs Josh has put in place have been programs that my opponent is opposed to. So the efficiency and the efficacy of those programs are something that he would never implement. So it was great to have Josh Shapiro here talking about, how he's cut permitting time for small businesses by 90%, which I'm going to work to do here in New Jersey. And there are areas where Pennsylvania and New Jersey work closely together in photonics and innovation as the President Trump is cutting all of the money for innovation. New Jersey is forming regional partnerships in the area so that we can continue to drive innovation and jobs. So stuff like that is really important. Having someone like Gretchen Whitmer here, who has been a really pragmatic governor. I mean, her whole tagline is fix the damn roads, and just showing that fight for people and efficiency and getting stuff done, which I think stands in such sharp contrast to the chaos that is going on at the federal government and the attacks on our economy from the federal government. And then, yes, Obama, I think, is someone that is just widely admired here, a thoughtful, pragmatic person who never shies away from fighting for our civil rights and liberties, but at the same time also focuses on that deep drive and how economic success can create so much opportunity. I think that balance has been so important, and something that I think he's been very good at striking as he comments on what is going on now. So we're really excited to have him come in. I think it's interesting because that stands in sharp contrast to the fact that while he's done a tele-rally, I think my opponent has not really wanted to have Trump on the ground here at a rally, which has been interesting because he's tied himself so strongly to President Trump. He's also, some of the surrogates he's had rallies with, I think he's trying to get the base out, but he doesn't talk about it too much because, they say things like, if you get your vaccinations, you're going to be magnetic, like a refrigerator or something. Or he's had surrogates come in who have, been at Stop the Steal rallies and called into question our election system. So he sort of does these dog whistles to his base, but I don't think really gets the word out about some of this because they're very unpopular in the general electorate, which I think stands in sharp contrast. I think a lot of the swing vote, people like Gretchen Whitmer and Josh Shapiro and Barack Obama. So I think that's kind of a sharp contrast here in this election as to where people want to see our state going.
Anyone who says, hey, you know what? I'm not going to vote. I'm not going to bother. My vote doesn't matter. What would you say to them who are kind of thinking, well, you know what? This is too much for me. I'm not going to bother.
I think that was a fight we were having last year, and a lot of people did stay home, and we saw a 10-point swing to the right. And I think the numbers I've seen are about 500,000 Democrats stayed home last year. And now I think people are seeing the results. The tariff program is raising costs everywhere. The jobs numbers are horrible. We have about 22 states in a recession, and New Jersey is in danger. Really important programs on innovation that drive down the cost of colleges and universities, but also really huge attacks on vulnerable people. I mean, right now, the president says he's going to end the SNAP program, even though he has $6 billion dedicated towards that he legally should be spending on it, but he just wants to punish poor people and poor children who don't have enough food. I don't understand why that would be. He wants to raise costs on getting access to medical care and raise costs on utilities because the fossil fuel companies gave him $250 million for his election. So he sat down with them in April and said, what do you want? And it's basically going to cost the American ratepayer a lot of money as the utility prices go up. So again and again, I think people are seeing the results of sitting out of last year's election, and I don't think we're going to see that this year.
Congresswoman Mikie Sherrill, thank you so much. And in the final days, we wish you the best. We'll see you on the trail. And thanks for your time with 1010 Wins today. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
See you soon. Thank you.
Thanks.